This is your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. Hope you guys are having a good day out there today. Lots to get to on the show. A lot of Gopher football on this show. Mike Brown-Stephens, wide receiver for the Gophers, will join me here in just a little bit. Had a great conversation with him on Tuesday out at the Big Athletic Complex over there. Just a lot of interesting stuff about him, including, if you had not forgotten, he is the nephew of John Legend, the excellent recording artist. And at one point in his life, he accidentally broke one of John Legend's Grammy awards, the actual statue. So just a really fun conversation with Mike Brown-Stephens about that, but of course about football and other stuff along his journey. So I hope you enjoyed that. Randy Johnson, who covers Gopher football for the Tribune, will also join me on the show to talk a little bit more about the upcoming opportunity against Purdue, the 4-0 start, ranking now number 21 in the AP poll, number 23 in the coaches poll. So a lot at stake in this game at Huntington Bank Stadium on Saturday. A chance to go 5-0 and a chance to kind of keep this momentum rolling through the season. They've been very good so far this year, starting to make people believe, and this would be another step along that way. Also got to get to a Vikings quote at the end of the day today from, I took interest in Mark Craig's story on Eric Kendricks and the defense, and something from that struck me as something to watch going forward, so we'll peek in at that as well. First, though, what did I miss? Let's start with the Twins, just because I feel like this happens sometimes where I write something not entirely flattering about them. In this case, I wrote a blog post on Tuesday, I guess it was, about just the pitching and kind of how we didn't know how good we had it in 2019 when we were watching that team. And I know there's a lot of things went right that year. They hit 307 home runs. I think you might remember that. Set a major league record for home runs in a season that year. But beyond that, just peeked at some things and just the consistency they had that year in their starting rotation. They had 5 guys make at least 26 starts that year. 5 guys pitch at least 146 innings that year, and they weren't all great, but you could pretty much know exactly who was going to take the ball every 5th day that year, and that played a big part in how they were able to navigate the season. I think they finished with like 889 innings pitched from their starters. That was 6th most in Major League Baseball this season going into Tuesday night's game, and I wrote that Tuesday afternoon. This season, I believe they ranked 28th in innings from starters, so 3rd from the bottom. A lot of short starts, a lot of not terribly effective starts, a lot of injuries, things like that this year. Nobody on this team has gotten even to that 146 inning mark that 5 of those Twins pitchers reached in 2019. Now, Joe Ryan might get there at the end of the year here. I think he's only like 5 innings away. But point being, after Jose Barrios led the team in innings pitched with like 121 and change last year, even though he was traded with 2 months left in the season, he led the team in innings pitched last year. Another year where they're just not getting enough innings from their starters. So, of course, I write that, and then Bailey Ober goes out and pitches a gem, pitches into the 8th inning, I believe, for just the 3rd time all year that a Twin starter has pitched into the 8th inning, 3rd or 4th, something like that. It's not been many. I think Joe Ryan did it once. I think Dylan Bundy did it once, but I don't think anybody else has done it. So that right there tells you kind of what the pitching plan has been this year, and part of it is just they just don't have a lot of really good pitchers. That said, you write a lot about the pitchers not throwing innings, and then Bailey Ober throws innings, and then you think about the pitching, and if you are going to be even a little bit optimistic about 2023, and I'm not by and large, I think there's some reasons to be pessimistic. Just I feel like this team has had a hard time getting any kind of consistency. When they seem like they're kind of good, they're not healthy. When they're healthy, they're not good in the last couple of years. But if you're looking for one thread of something to carry into 2023, I think maybe it is, strangely enough, the pitching. I think by being forced to find so many different options this year, they do have the makings of a rotation next year that could be at least producing some depth. So you got Joe Ryan, who's had a good year. I would say 12-8, 3.7 ERA. He's been quite good. He's only given up 110 hits in 141 innings, so he qualifies as having a good year. Sonny Gray, who is back under contract next year, 8-5, 3.08 ERA, 24 starts. When he's been healthy, he has been quite good as well. Bailey Ober, like I mentioned, pitched very well in that game. And when he's been healthy, again this year, that caveat, just 51 innings pitched, but when he's been healthy, he has an ERA of 3.18. Now, I don't think Dylan Bundy will be back. I don't think Chris Archer will be back. That would be a surprise to me. But then you start talking about guys like Josh Winder, who looked pretty good when he got a shot before he, again, got hurt. You start talking about guys like Chris Paddock, who was injured early in the year. They should get him back at some point next year, I would imagine. Tyler Mahle, the trade deadline acquisition, who had to be shut down if he comes back healthy. Louis Varland has made a few starts and looked good in some of them. You're talking about maybe getting back some of these other guys. And talking about Kenta Maeda should definitely be back next season and recovered from his surgery. So you're talking about some options here. I don't know if that's the making of a great rotation, but you're talking about a lot of guys who have shown that when they are healthy, they can pitch okay. So I feel like if you are looking for just a little bit of optimism going into next year, strangely enough, it might be the starting pitching. Maybe they can get more innings out of these guys next year because they depend on them a little bit more, because they know they can pitch deeper, because they are actually good pitchers. So keep that in mind as you think about this offseason. Even as pessimism reigns, there might be some hope for the future.
MGM Wine and Spirits is the choice for savings, service, and a great selection of spirits, pre-mixed cocktails, wines, and of course, ice-cold beers and hard seltzers. With over 30 locations throughout the Twin Cities and beyond, there's an MGM near you. Head to MGMWineandSpirits.com to find a convenient location in your area. Get social. Follow MGM on Facebook and Instagram for all the latest news and trends. Make great moments with MGM Wine and Spirits, your locally owned and operated choice for over 50 years. Save time, save money. Shop MGM.
I'm back here with Mike Brown-Stephens, wide receiver for the Gophers. Mike, we just had you in the bigger session with the rest of the media, and you had them laughing, you had them going. I mean, is that just your personality, or how you just kind of the way you communicate in general?
Honestly, yeah. I always try to, be myself whenever I'm talking to anybody. Honestly, whether it be business setting, I know that might not always be the right thing to do, but I just feel more comfortable just being myself. I don't, reach to make everybody laugh, but some of the things I do say, provides a little giggle for somebody.
Is that play out in the locker room? Are you one of the funnier guys, or is that part of your leadership in the locker room even?
Definitely. I like to joke around with the guys a lot. I feel like I'm one of the guys that can flip the switch and everybody will know if, it's time to be serious or we're joking at the time. But, yeah, I would like to consider myself, a little jokester sometimes.
You said you were a fan of Lions. Were you just, talking at that point, or are you really a fan of Lions?
I'm definitely really a fan of Lions. I don't have my chain on right now, but I got a Lion pendant chain. I got a lion tatted on me right here.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
I got another lion right here from the Lion King. I got this big lion mural in my room. I got a lion decal in my bathroom. I got lions everywhere. So
you weren't lying.
Yeah, I wasn't lying.
Oh, sorry.
that was a good one.
That was dad. No, I'm a dad. That's a dad joke. All right, my bad.
Knee slapper.
Yeah. I would ask you some football stuff here in a minute, but I'm sure we've been through this countless times. But nephew of John Legend,
mm-hmm.
we all know that. But how does that when you're related to somebody famous and you're famous yourself, you're related to other famous players too. How does that kind of family dynamic work out?
Man, it's definitely a blessing. I would say it could be a curse, but it's only a curse for people who let it be. Because a lot of people, they'll come up to me and be like, you don't think people just use you for your uncle or the people you know? I'm like, how can someone use me for somebody they can't get to if I don't let them?
Yeah.
So, it's a blessing / a curse in that sense, but outside of that, it's just real cool always getting to, go out there and live, sort of a part of their life and seeing, just how, a bigger side of life, really. For example, I went out to Las Vegas when he was doing his residency back in May. And we were there I took one of my best friends, Trey Potts, our running back.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yep, so I took him out there with me, and it was me, him, his girl, and my girlfriend. And, you know, my uncle got us all a hotel where he was performing at. You know, just going out and getting front row seats to his show and watching everything going on behind stage. Seeing him take pictures with everybody, like meet and greets, and then, you know, just going out and having fun after the show and all types of stuff. And then we ended up going back to L.A. to his place the day after the show, and just, you know, just kicking it with him, and just in a $14 or $17 million house. And this is just crazy. Like, he got like 100-foot infinity pool. It's like all the stuff is really motivational, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's really like the blessing side of it.
I was going to say, what's the curse side? I'm not hearing any curse side. I'm hearing all blessing here.
Yeah, like, and that's why I say it's more of a blessing. Like, there really isn't any curse to it, honestly, because that's why I'm so confused when people come up to me and ask, like, well, don't you think people are using it? I'm like, no. Like, I love it over here.
And he's just a good guy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he's a normal person. Like, you know, he doesn't think he's bigger than anybody. He's real down to earth. He texts me after every game. You know, good game, good catch. I've been watching. I'm sorry I didn't get to watch this part, but I was performing at the time. So, you know, he's very involved with what I got going on. I talk to him at least a couple times a week, if not every day. You know, it just depends. But that's my guy, man. He's been a real big role model for me, and there's everybody in my family, and he's really set the right way to do things.
Yeah.
He's never in trouble. He has a nice family and kids, and shows how to be a father and a public figure in the correct way. So that's definitely somebody I look up to.
Does he still remind you that you broke his Grammy? Because he tweeted that like,
man, I can't run away from this.
So I'm just asking, like you know, we got to do our research going in. It's like, wait, that was you?
Mm-hmm. So every time I go back to visit him, you know, I go out there probably like either 2-3 times a year. Whenever I get time away, I always go in his like trophy room, and I look, and I always find him like 2010. There it is. That's the one I broke. Right there.
How'd you break it?
Man,
you were 10 years old, right? So you're like,
I was like 9. I was like 9 or 10, something like that. And I was tying my shoe. And this time he only probably had like 5 at the time.
Only 5 Grammys, okay.
Yeah, and so they were up on like a little stool, and it had like little shelves, like just singular shelves, and it was probably like a foot wide and a foot long, but it just like went up to probably like 3 or 4 feet. So I was tying my shoe, and my cousin, he walks by, and he kind of like does this to my shoulder, and when I look up, I start leaning back, and the Grammy case is right behind me. I lean back into it, and then really 2 of them fell. One of them, the horn on the whatever it is, like the record player, it like turned, but he like just fixed that one, and then the other one, like it just fell all the way off the platform. I'm like, oh shoot. He's just like, oh, Mikey, you broke my Grammy.
Oh, no.
He was like, it's okay. I'll just order another one. I was like, okay, cool.
Oh, that's amazing. But, I mean, come a long way since then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm always interested in the journey someone takes to get to someplace like Minnesota. I mean, you're not from here. You're like, before you came here, I don't even know if you've ever been here. Like, how do you wind up here? How do you end up getting a scholarship? You come to a camp, things like that. How does that all transpire for you?
Yeah, so I remember coming up here on a visit with 2 of my high school best friends, and they're still my best friends to this day, Moses and Isaiah. They ended up going to Kentucky, but anyways, we
still like them.
Yeah, I'm still good with them. But we came to Minnesota. We went on like a 3-day trip, 3 visits each day. We stopped at Iowa State first, and then came to Minnesota, and then went home, and then went to West Virginia. So we came to Minnesota. I wasn't being recruited. These were all their recruits, their schools that they had offers at. And I was just, the tag along, wanting to get my name out. So I remember getting here and going in the receiver room, watching their meetings going on and all that. And Simon, he just kind of acted like he didn't even know who I was. He probably didn't, honestly. And I just remember feeling like, dang. And then at the same time, when I went to go watch the practice, I was like, man, I like this place. I'm sitting here trying to tell my boy Zay, like, yo, y'all want to come here? Like, if I got the offer, I would commit here. And I don't even think Fleck knows all this, honestly. But, I was telling them that, and they didn't even – I really wasn't even being recruited by them at the time. Coming to the end of the visit, I talked to – because, I talked to Fleck. All three of us, we were talking to him. And then we basically was just like, we're going to start recruiting more now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So then we go home, and they just like, Rossi, he was my recruiter at the time, and he said, come to our camp. Make sure you get to our camp. We'll be there at Wilmington, and we're doing like a little satellite camp. So, just come through, come show out. So all throughout the rest of the spring, I'm just training, thinking about the camp. I'm like, all right, bet. This is like my first like big school that really wants me to go to a camp. So I go to the camp, and I remember I was wearing jersey number 198, and Coach Fleck, he came up to me. He was like, hey, man, you better put on a show. I was like, man, I'm going to put on a show. I got you. Don't worry. Just being kind of cocky or whatever.
Right.
So I go out there. I do my thing. And I remember Siraki, he said he only remembered me by number 198. So he used to just call me that all the time when I got up here. He was like, 198, how's it going, blah, blah, blah. And so after the camp, a few days later, I got the offer. And, I was just happy. And then I came here. And I remember when I got the offer, I remember how I felt when I first came here on that visit with Moses and Isaiah. And then I came here for the Hyper Hangout sometime in like June, I think towards like the end of June, and talked to Coach Fleck, and we made it official after that weekend. So, and I feel like I made a good decision thus far. So
it's been a journey. A few more things for you. This year you guys are 4-0. I don't even know what coaches say to you guys after the game. Like, we got to work on this, we got to work at that. Like, what? Like, what do you guys got to work on? I know there is, and I know that's not the attitude that you guys have. But like, I watched the game against Michigan State. I'm like, man, they got this thing locked down right now. And obviously, it's going to get harder. There's going to be adversity, but like, you guys got to feel pretty good. Like, what do they even have to complain about right now? What do they coach up right now?
Yeah, every game, there's always, you never play a perfect game. I remember Coach Fleck, he showed us a video of Jerry Rice. And somebody asked him, did he, like, after all he's done, does he feel like he's, like, he's the best receiver of all time in the NFL. Do you feel like you've mastered your position? And Jerry Rice said no. And he was just showing that, there's something you can always get better at, no matter how dominant you are, no matter what the stats look like. And he literally was just like, I can go back and watch film and say, like, did I do the right technique when I was blocking? Or just something as little as that. So just getting back to the question, what do they have to coach us on? There's a lot of stuff that, we might have missed assignments on, or blocking the wrong person even though we blocked somebody. So the result doesn't show everything that happened in between the game. And you never know what, you messing up in this area would do in the next game. Maybe you mess up in the area of the next game and it'd be way more devastating and could change the game. So there's a lot of things that need to be coached up on, but, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't always show in the results.
It kind of goes along with something Tanner Morgan said in the group setting, too. I think he said complacency is the number one killer of success. Is that something you guys – that feels like it's something that gets repeated a lot with you guys, or that's maybe a mantra of this year's team as you kind of think about – yeah, we're 4-0 right now, but we can't just be satisfied with that.
Exactly. So we honestly, I don't look. Everybody knows we're 4-0. Like, everybody on the team, we all know we're 4-0. But I think this team, we have a good job. We do a good job in moving forward and taking it 1 week at a time, better than the past few teams that I've been on.
Okay.
As a collective, not saying that the past few teams, like, we didn't have people who did that and who were able to do that, but I'm saying as a full team, we've done a great job in just being able to move on and swallow everything that they're giving us as far as, this coaching and all this. A lot of teams would just be like, man, come on, man. We just, blew out a top 25 team. Like, they literally didn't score until the fourth quarter and blah, blah, blah. What more what do we have to do? You don't have nothing to say. But,
right.
We do a good job in just moving on and making sure that we are staying 1 week at a time and making that the main focus.
A couple of things left for you. One, I think you talked a little bit in the group setting about kind of how you build trust with someone like Tanner Morgan, how, that comes over time, and it's not immediate, and sometimes it's just those reps and things like that. How do you define kind of the trust between a quarterback and a receiver?
Honestly, it's just going out there and making plays. Whenever your name is called, because in practice you're not going to get called for every rep to, go out there and he's going to throw you the ball every rep. So it comes in because everything's on film. So just even if you're not getting the ball, he wants to see, are you going to win on this route? Yeah. Even if I'm not looking your way, are you going to win on this route? Can I trust that you'll always be open if this first read is not going to go how I want it? I know I have you back here. So just being consistent in what you're doing, catching the ball, and basically that's all it is to build trust. Is, the consistency of the things that you're able to do, and then built up over time comes that trust.
And you also said selflessness is a big piece of this year's team, maybe even more so than other teams you've been on. Not that you've had selfish teams, not to say that, but just like a really good attribute of this year's team. How does that present itself on whether it's a practice day, whether it's game day? How does that play itself out?
Yeah, and I feel like the reason why you have to be selfless, especially with this team, is because there's a playmaker everywhere. Whereas in the past, there might have been one or two guys that everybody wanted to see. Yeah. Even players on the team, like, man, I'm trying to see what Tyre, Rashad, or Chris is going to do this game. Right.
And you've been here for those guys.
Exactly.
You saw them.
And I was one of the guys that's just like, man, I can't wait to watch Tyler bait this game. Yeah. I'm not just a young guy. Right. Speaking from that mindset. But, there was times where people were like that. And I just feel like, you have to be open to everybody playing a part in the win, because there's playmakers everywhere. Everybody can do something great and special out on that field. So there's no room for being selfish, at all. So and at the same time, it brings the group together. When people see that you want to see somebody else win, it's infectious. They want to feel that too. And then once you really buy into it, it just becomes natural. And it just happens. So that's one thing that really has been, coming out of me more and more each game. It's just like, man, I'm so happy to just for Mo when he was scoring touchdowns, and knowing that I could play a part in that, and just seeing him, going and doing his thing, that's super exciting for me. And Daniel Jackson, 2 touchdowns, in one game. I'm like, man, I'm super proud of that. I see him as a little brother. So, just seeing stuff like that is just super, super special to me.
You guys have a lot of good things going right now. We'll see how it plays out against Purdue. If you have one, it's probably not one key to the game ever, but as you think about anytime you go into a Saturday, is there one thing you bring into it and say, hey, if we do this, we're going to win, or if we go into it this way, we're going to win?
Yeah, just execute our game plan. That's from week to week. We just have to execute our game plan better than we executed the game plan last week. So that kind of goes into, what do they have to coach you on? Yeah. Maybe we didn't execute the game plan 100% last week, and we didn't. Not maybe, but we didn't. Maybe we did it 76%. Now, this week, we want to at least do it 77%. Strive for 100, but, at the end of the day, be better than we were last week.
Awesome. Mike Brown-Stephens, appreciate your time, and good luck Saturday.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man.
Well, if we thought that Michigan State was going to be a better test for the Gophers, or maybe a kind of a benchmark game for them, I guess it was of sorts. It didn't prove to be that much more of a test, but I guess by Randy Johnson winning 34-7, a game that was 34-0 until the very last seconds. Gophers answered a lot of questions, at least for now, but probably for the big picture that this is a pretty good team.
Yeah, I think that pretty much sealed it. It basically, you had to. It was easy to question who they had done this before to in the first 3 games of the non-conference season. You get in the conference play, and then you go on the road to a team that 2 weeks earlier was ranked number 11 in the country, and you spank them 34-7, and it was over in a hurry. They a 75-yard drive, 77-yard drive right away, and then they get a field goal to go up 17, and Purdue was just on its heels, or Michigan State is just on its heels.
No, Tanner Morgan likes, he resists comparisons. I think sometimes he's very
now focused and present focused on the next opponent. But I mean, he did, say this is about as comfortable as he's felt throwing the ball. He said that Tuesday, and this just looks a lot like 2019 Tanner Morgan, and probably no coincidence with Kirk Ciarrocca back as his coordinator and him just gaining all this experience. But I don't think any of us might have thought that he might look as good as he did against Michigan State.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the last couple of years with Mike Sanford, Tanner said all the right things, and, he would take the blame on himself and everything. But clearly he's meshing with Kirk Ciarrocca a lot better than he did with Sanford as our offense coordinator. So he's the interesting thing Saturday was how he's been doing it all year, but how he spread the ball around in a big game like that. They're missing Chris Ottman-Bell because of the injury, so he just each took it upon themselves to step up, and he found them. 10 different receivers catching the ball. I
don't get the sense that this is a team that will, get too full of itself from being ranked now, 21st in the AP and 23 in the coaches. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's true.
And so I don't feel like this is like something you necessarily worry about with this specific team. They seem to have that kind of next game up mentality, and PJ Fleck has preached that from the very beginning. That said, it's kind of human nature sometimes too. When you do experience some success, you get ranked, you've got a big game coming up, you've got you're expecting a big crowd against Purdue on Saturday for there to be, some sort of, whether it's a letdown or you're too hyped up or whatever it is, that it's hard to sustain this level. Where do you get the sense that they are at going into this Purdue game on Saturday?
Yeah, they really do adhere to PJ's mantra of one game championship seasons. That's, they're saying all the right things and doing all the right things, but backing it up. They're going to hit some adversity this, going forward here. It's that, we don't know when that's going to come. It could come this weekend. They got a little bit of it with the loss of Ottman-Bell. You'd rather have him in there than not. The one thing though is they do have some depth at wide receiver, so that does help mitigate that situation. They're not always. I don't think they're always going to race out to a 14-0 lead after the first two possessions. They're going to run into some issues, and then that's when we'll see how they respond. When they've had a little bit of adversity, they've responded to it. Case in point. Start the second half at 17-0. Michigan State's driving down the field. They get to the 6th, and then Thomas Rush punches the ball out, and Justin Wally recovers it. That's they've had some good responses for the defense, creating turnovers when the offense might have faltered a little bit.
Defense, the starting defense, right, is still just allowed 3 points in 4 games. Is that right? When
no
the starters are in?
Yeah. 3 points to Western Illinois in the first half.
I mean, obviously that's not going to continue the whole year, Andy, but this defense, again, like every kind of step they take forward, every time you do it again, especially against Michigan State, adds some credibility to it. What about this defense to you is so good? Because they did lose some players off of this defense.
Yeah, I think it's depth. That's part of it. I was always concerned about the defensive line, how they were going to be losing, 2 NFL draft picks to the pros on the ends, and then a couple more big guys in the middle that were mainstays for 3-4 years. That's going to be, so far so good. Trell Carter stepped up in the middle. You're getting production out of a guy like Danny Strigow at the end. Hit an incredible interception, diagnoses a screen pass, and sticks his arm out, grabs the ball. That was a great play. I think it's their depth. They have quality at all three levels with on the line at linebacker. Marin's having a great year, and in the secondary, Darrell Smith having a great year at corner. Tyler Newbin obviously really good. Jordan Howden, and then Justin Wally at the other corner. They're pretty set. It'll be interesting this week because Purdue is a pass happy team, and they'll test them.
I was just going to ask you about Purdue. I mean, that seems like the way that Purdue will maybe test them that other teams haven't quite tested them yet. Not like Michigan State couldn't move the ball or didn't have capabilities of doing that, but Purdue definitely maybe a step up in class offensively, or at least in the passing game. And, that's like, again, we keep asking for more, and they keep giving us more along the way. But is that one thing you're looking for in particular in this game, how they respond to a team that could maybe, hurt them a little bit more through the air?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting first to see who's quarterbacking the Boilermakers. Aiden O'Connell was hurt last week, didn't play. Coach Jeff Brom's been a little, hasn't really hinted if he's going to play or not this week. His backup had a decent game against Florida Atlantic to help rally him back. The interesting thing this week is they're playing against a receiver who's one of the better ones in the country, and it's going to be Charlie Jones, transfer from Iowa. He's already got 41 receptions this year, leading the nation. So they'll be matched up against a guy who's going to get the ball a lot. So far this year, they haven't had a situation where they've had one guy like that where they've had to shut down. We'll see how they do against that. It's a little different wrinkle than they will have seen, but it'll be a good challenge.
A couple more thoughts for you, Randy Johnson, Gophers beat writer for the Star Tribune. One of them being you start seeing all sorts of projections. I think, bowl things that come out right now are way too early, but you see like Citrus Bowl, Orange Bowl, something like that. Like this is, it's fun to kind of imagine and whatnot. And, where are you kind of on the spectrum of how good this team looks so far versus let's not get ahead of ourselves still at this point?
Well, the beauty of our job is we can put the cart way ahead of the horse, and it doesn't cost anything.
That's true.
The coaches and teams competing, that's a different story. It's fun to daydream a little bit and see what's going to happen. I think they still have a lot of, we're talking only one conference game so far. They got 8 more to go and 4 more on the road. So that's always a concern when you're playing on the road. So far, their culture has traveled, as they like to say. This one, Purdue is a tricky one. They've lost a couple tight games to decent teams in Penn State and Syracuse. They're not a team that you can take lightly. They're they can light the scoreboard up. Defensively, they'll give up some, but it's fun looking ahead. But I think you got to take care of what's in front of you right now.
Looks like it's going to be a nice day Saturday. They've got they got the stripes planned, the different way the stadium is going to look. I'd imagine it'll be pretty full, if not all the way full. I mean, is this, atmosphere wise, I got to imagine this is, probably the first real big one of the year with the first Big Ten home game.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be, they should get a pretty good crowd. I'm sure a lot of the people would like it rather be at 2:30 than 11 a.m. to spend a little more time getting primed up and tailgating for the game, but they'll make do. I mean, you have some Hardy fans getting out there at 7 a.m. and getting it going. But it should be a nice atmosphere and see how that stripe out works. The alternating sections with maroon and gold. It should be a fun time. And it's this team is, I would say, it's earned a big crowd. So it'd be nice if it shows up like it's shows up pretty full.
That sounds accurate to me as well. I think they're favored by like 9.5 or 10 at this point. They could open at like 7.5. So there are plenty of believers out there, and we will see if they keep earning that belief on Saturday. Randy Johnson, good stuff. We'll keep reading your coverage in the Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. We'll catch up soon.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Now, I feel like the Gophers are taking a little bit of the spotlight, or at least taking a little bit of the pressure off of the Vikings, and I think that pressure on the Vikings would be much greater had they not pulled off that win Sunday against the Lions. And that brings me to the cooler. Like I said at the beginning, Mark Craig's story on the defense, on with some key Eric Kendricks quotes. Kendricks had a really good game Sunday, but Mark was wondering, he saw Vikings had no sacks, no knockdowns, just in the closing minutes, only got to Goff one time, Jared Goff. Jared Goff built 2 double-digit leads while facing only 7 blitzes on Sunday, even though the Lions had some injuries on the offensive line, even though Goff is not the kind of quarterback who is going to hurt you with his legs. So Mark asked Eric Kendricks, do you think guys sit back a little bit too much sometimes in this new defense? And Kendricks said, yeah, sometimes. Sometimes we got to be more aggressive, and sometimes we got to make plays on the ball, too. He said, The quote that really caught my attention, though, was this. It was really good for us to get this win, to stay positive while fixing things that need fixing, said Kendricks. We have a lot to clean up. A lot. Now, when the players are seeing that the scheme, that there's some holes in the scheme, that there's some gaps in the way that the players are, producing in the scheme, that, and they're free to talk about it. I think that's good. I think we saw a little bit of that from Patrick Peterson after that loss to the Eagles, where he said, we're making adjustments, but not the right ones. Need to play up a little bit more. I think these guys are itching to be a little bit more aggressive, and maybe that will come once they get a little bit more comfortable in the scheme. They want to be, if you're not comfortable in a scheme, you'd rather give up a bunch of 8 and 10 yard gains instead of a bunch of, 20 and 30 yard gains if guys are getting behind you and you're getting blitzes and they're not getting home. That said, I think those guys are right, and that's a storyline for me to watch. Right, they might get away with it. The schedule might align in a way that they get away with it early, because I don't think New Orleans has a great offense, and I don't think Chicago has a great offense. Those are their next two opponents. But watch that going forward, because it feels like that has the possibility to be a storyline. Will they be good enough on defense once they start facing some of these better teams consistently? And will the scheme catch up to the personnel? I don't know about that. I think it's going to be interesting to watch. And I'm sure Andrew Kramer and I will talk about that more on Access Vikings podcast today. That'll do it for me here today on Daily Delivery. Like I said, an Access Vikings coming out later today. Chris Hine on Thursday's show to talk Timberwolves. I'm sure we got to talk Wild at some point, but to me, it's too early to talk hockey. It's September. Stop tweeting about hockey. It's not hockey season yet. We'll talk basketball on Thursday's show, though. We will certainly do that. Thanks for joining me today. Back at it Thursday.